Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. So how many people here have ever experienced a loss or something devastating that you had a hard time getting over? Anybody ever had a hard time getting over something? Or how many people ever had a time in your life where you felt so lost and so confused about what to do with you just had no idea what to do? Anybody ever been so uncertain you didn't know what to do? And then how many people here have ever made a bad decision that really changed your life in not the best way, and you spent years and months second-guessing and blaming yourself? Second-guessing, okay. You know, we've been talking about how to handle life when doors close, because we don't like when doors close. And there are two sayings, and the first one that I heard that I like is, when one door closes, another door opens. That's when you realize you bought a really bad used car. Okay, okay, that's... You think that was bad? Wait till you hear the one that's coming in 2 minutes. It's really horrible. And the second saying is, when one door closes, another opens, but it's hell in the hallway. And you know, the hallway is that uncomfortable place between where a door closed and the other door has not opened yet. And we don't like being in the hallway, because the hallway means that something in our life has ended. Something that is there that was important is no longer there. Something in our lives that was once an important part of our lives is gone. And the fact is, we don't like endings because endings are not easy. We don't like it when relationships end, whether they end from an argument or end in divorce. We don't like it when jobs end, where you're fired or laid off. We don't like it when a way of life that we've known for a long time comes to an end, either with bankruptcy or foreclosure, or whether it comes from a difficult diagnosis or the loss of a loved one, or moving sometimes to a different state for a job. That hallway can be an uncomfortable place. It can be a place that feels scary and isolated and alone, where we have no idea what's going to happen next. And I think some of the reasons we don't like the hallway, because it's uncertain, and it's scary, it's dark, it's lonely, but I think we don't like it as well because there's a lot of work to be done in the hallway. It takes work to feel what you're feeling. It takes work to move through the pain in a way to process it so it can be transitioned and transformed into something greater and something better. Hallways are not comfortable. We'd rather go from a closed door to an open door with no hallway. But it doesn't work that way. And as scary as a hallway is, I think the hallway is an important place. Because while it's a place of pain, I think it's a place of potential. While it's a scary place, I think it's a sacred place. While it's a place of hurting, I think it is a place of healing. And while it is a place of darkness, I think it's a place that can lead us into light. When you think about it, you know, the hallway is really kind of a good news, bad news place to be. You know, that kind of reminds me of this attorney that said to his client, I've got some good news and some bad news. And the client says, well, give me the bad news first. He said, well, the bad news is that your blood was all over the crime scene, and the DNA test proved that you did it. He said, that's horrible. He said, what's the good news? He said, the good news is your cholesterol is 130. I could feel the door closing and slamming shut on that joke. And so we don't like it when doors close, but we love it when doors open, because it represents new beginnings, new possibilities, new opportunities, new life, new joy. And the thing about it is to have a good new beginning, you have to know how to have an ending. And you have to know how to move through and process and walk through the hallway. So we're in the second week of our three-week series called Hell in the Hallway. And it is inspired by a book written by a friend and colleague, fellow minister, Ellen Davenport, named Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door. And so last week we looked at what do we do when doors close. And there are three important things. Is when a door closes in our life and something ends, we've got to realize that we've got to understand that change is an important part of life. If there wasn't change, there wouldn't be growth. There wouldn't be improvement. Life couldn't get better. We couldn't become more if there wasn't change. So we need to understand that and be more accepting when change happens in our lives. Second is to embrace our humanity. You know, whenever there's change, there's upset, there's sadness, there's difficulty, there's pain, there's grief, and we got to let ourselves feel our feelings. Sometimes we think it's not spiritual to be sad. It's not spiritual to be mad or feel down or frustrated, and that's just not true. Jesus wept. He turned over tables. He got frustrated at his disciples. You know, we hear the expression, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but most of the time we want to avoid a lot of the human experience, particularly when it comes to sadness and pain. We need to let all of the feelings of being human flow through us, not block it, not block and hold on to them. You know, we need to embrace all of our humanity, which includes our feelings. And then the last one is you just got to claim your spiritual power. Sometimes when things happen to us, we think, God, look what happened to me. Look what they did to me. Look what they said to me. And sometimes these difficulties in our lives, we need to look at it not in what happened to me, but maybe this is happening for me to help me grow and expand, to become more. And we need to claim the power, not be a victim, but make an intention that I'm going to get something good out of this. So we're going to expand on some of these topics today as we talk about that was when a door closes. Well, what do you do when you're in the hallway? What do you do in that dark place where something's ended and you have no idea what to do next? So we're going to talk about the work in the hallway, and the work of the hallway is inner work, and it is spiritual work, and it is important, vital work to help us move along to a new beginning and a new opening. So the first thing we need to do is we need to learn how to let go, because we're not very good at letting go. When a door closes, we so don't like being in the hallway that we find the best way to get out of the hallway is to go back through the door and reopen it. Anybody ever try to reopen a door that was closed? Anybody ever try to do that? We do things like this. We get so scared about being in the hallway. And you know what the human reaction is when we get scared and feel alone? We tend to hold on. Even if it's not good for us, we'll hold on to it because we're scared. And holding on is the thing we do. You know, when we get scared, we clench our fists, we get tight. We even get so scared we hold our breath. We think that holding on is safe, that holding on will protect us, that if you just hold on, life's going to get better. Just keep holding on. We think fighting against it is the best way. And I'll tell you, it's actually the opposite. David Hawkins said that the most powerful spiritual practice, the most powerful spiritual technique that brings us peace, that ends our suffering, that opens us to greater possibilities and has us have a deeper connection to God is not holding on, it is in fact letting go. That letting go, while it sounds scary, is probably the most liberating and freeing things and the best thing we could do to help ourselves move on and not get stuck. We have a hard time letting go. Every time I've had to let something go, there are always claw marks all over it. Anybody relate to that? Anybody else besides me have a hard time letting go of certain things? We just do. And why do we have a hard time letting go? And you know why it is? It's because we get attached. Our emotions get attached. Our hearts get attached. But it's even more. We get attached to a way of thinking, a way of living, a way of believing, a way of seeing life and thinking that's how it should be, and also a way of seeing ourselves. And when something like gets pulled out that affects how we have always lived and the structure we built our life on and how we believe in ourselves and what we believe life to be, then we feel totally lost and disoriented. So we try to hang on to anything to keep ourselves safe. The problem is hanging on keeps us stuck. Hanging on, we can't move forward. Hanging on is not a great way for us to be living. I tell you, I guarantee you 100%, if you are stuck in any area of your life, if you are unhappy that things aren't progressing and you aren't feeling a level of joy, the number one question to ask ourselves is, what do I need to let go? What is it that I'm holding on to that no longer serves me? What is it in my life that it is time for me to release? Letting go is a powerful thing, and particularly the whole idea of letting go and surrendering. To let go and surrender how you think life should be or who you think you are, just letting go of the labels, letting go of your agenda, and just surrendering to God is one of the most powerful and liberating things we can do. Letting go and surrendering not only eases our pain and suffering, but it opens us to God's peace, and it opens us to greater possibility. And we can go even deeper of surrendering, and not just surrendering what we're concerned about, but to surrender to God's love, to surrender to the life that is calling us to be lived, surrendering to the person that we have been called here to be. So everybody just take a deep breath and just let go. Take another deep breath and let go. I let go of all of my concerns together. I let go of all of my concerns. Deep breath. I let go of how I think life should be together. I let go of how I think life should be. Deep breath. I let go of who I think I am together. I let go of who I think I am. Deep breath. And I surrender my life to God's love together. And I surrender my life to God's love. Deep breath. I surrender to the life that God is calling me to live together. I surrender to the life that God is calling me to live. Deep breath. And I surrender to the person that God is calling me to be together. And I surrender to the person that God is calling me to be. Deep breath. And I heard somebody once say, you need to let go of who you think you are so that you may become who you are meant to be. It is amazing how attached that we get to certain ideas, certain beliefs. You know, the truth is, everybody always wants to go to another level of life. Well, if we want to go to another level of life, we always have to let go of something. Some belief about ourselves, some level of unworthiness, some idea about life being limited. We have to let go of something to move our lives to another level. And the fact is we can prayerfully release and let go, and we need to do it on a regular basis because we keep grabbing and holding on daily. So we need to actually have a daily practice of taking a deep breath and letting go, taking a deep breath and practicing surrender. Ellen Davenport says something really interesting. She said, sometimes surrender can come from just an intention of releasing and letting go on a regular basis. But she says sometimes surrender can come from an old-fashioned meltdown. That just bawling and wailing and crying hysterically and getting to the place where you've got nothing left into you that you give up, sometimes that's a really good place. Because sometimes the things that bring us to our knees in our lives get us to that place where we finally let go, where we stop holding on. She has a story about a woman who was married and her marriage was ending, and she had a relationship, a fling with a guy that she previously knew, and then she got pregnant, and then the guy left. And so she is there in a small apartment, divorced, pregnant, all by herself, and she's wailing and pounding and just totally exhausts herself, crying and screaming and yelling. And she says then, suddenly she hears a voice that says, let go and relax. And just completely surrender and trust me and know that even though things aren't great now, they will get better. Sometimes it takes a situation that knocks us to our knees for us to finally surrender and let go. The real question for me about letting go is, do you trust that God loves you enough? Do you trust that God has a plan and purpose for your life? Do you trust that there's more good still available to you? Do you trust that enough that you'd be willing to let go of what you're holding on to right now? That you'd be willing to surrender how you see yourself in life so that God can lift you to a higher and greater purpose. I believe that surrender is a powerful way of deepening and opening a way for God to lift us in a more profound and meaningful way. It's not as sexy and as exciting as setting a goal and vision, intention, and affirmations, but I'll tell you, letting go is probably more powerful in terms of moving our lives forward than anything else. Michael Beckwith said 100% of spiritual growth is about letting go. 100%. And so not only do we need to let go and surrender, the next thing we need to do is to let go through forgiving. When something goes wrong and something has ended in our life, the first thing we do, we look around to see what happened and who did it. Who's to blame for this mess I'm in? Somebody had to do it because it certainly wasn't me. and we look around and we want to blame. You know, the process of grief happens as soon as something ends. There's a grief, a loss. And a part of the process of grief is anger. We get angry. And one of the ways we hold on to anger is blame. Blame is the perfect vehicle that keeps anger alive, because we find a way to channel this energy of anger outward instead of dealing with it. We get angry at the spouse who left. We get angry at the doctor who misdiagnosed. We get angry at our loved one who may have been in Alzheimer's for a long time, and we have to do a long-term care. You know, so we get angry at ourselves for mistakes that we have made. You know, blame not only keeps anger alive, but it keeps a story that somebody did me wrong. A built-in excuse for why my life isn't working. It keeps that alive. But you know what the worst part of blame is? It gives our power away. It's saying that what someone else did has affected my life, and therefore I can't be happy anymore. It gives our power away. Blame is one of the most dangerous things that keeps alive unhappiness and negative energy. You think it's a surprise when Scripture says, love your enemies and forgive those who persecute you? Every time we are not loving and unforgiving, we cut ourselves off from the flow of love, the flow of peace. We cut ourselves off from the purpose of the life that we are here to live. You know, forgiveness means to untie the knot. When we aren't forgiving, you know what? We tether ourselves, we tie ourselves to that person. We tie ourselves to that pain. We tie ourselves to the past. One of the things I've realized about forgiveness is you don't have to know how to forgive. You just got to be willing to forgive. God will do the healing. The question is, are you willing to forgive? Are you willing to let go of the past? Are you willing to stop telling the story? I am willing. Let's just say this together. I am willing. Take a deep breath. You know, just being willing is being open. It's being flexible. It's being willing to change, willing to see things in a new way, and a willingness to grow. When we're unwilling, we're rigid. We're inflexible. And we're more likely unwilling to change and see things in a new and different way. You know, it's a powerful thing to ask God, God, help me forgive. Help me see this in a new light. Help me see the good in this situation. You know, I think asking is so powerful. You know why asking isn't powerful or claiming it's powerful? Because it makes clear what your intention is. That I am willing to forgive. I am willing to heal. I'm willing to see this in a new light. I'm willing to see the good and gain the good that this came to bring me. You know, Ellen Davenport says there are two types of forgiveness. The traditional forgiveness, which is someone has wronged us and we forgive because we don't want to hold on to that bitter energy. But she says there's something called metaphysical forgiveness, which is the same forgiveness of knowing someone wronged you and not wanting to hold on. But then it's about going deeper and realizing that whatever happened to you was meant to happen to you and is an important part of your soul's growth. It is almost getting to the point where you realize that soul came into your life to help you heal or grow or get clear boundaries. And you can actually give thanks for the good that came from that particular situation. Because all the things that happen to us are not just things that happen to us, they're all a part of our soul's journey. I'll talk about that a little more in a second. One of the things about the hallway, about letting go, is you want to cleanse yourself, renew yourself, and nourish yourself so you can come out of it to have a real new beginning. A real new beginning, and not keep seeing a new situation with old eyes. I once saw this Peanuts cartoon where Charlie Brown a ball's coming to him, and he ends up dropping the ball, and then he's carrying the ball back to Lucy, who's the manager, and he says, is handing in the ball and saying, I'm sorry I dropped that easy fly ball, manager. But when the ball was coming at me, I remembered all the balls I've dropped before. I guess the past got into my eyes. And sometimes we let the past get into our eyes. We let whatever's happened to us dictate how we experience a new experience. Then that means it's really not a new experience. So letting go of surrendering, letting go in forgiveness is important. And another letting go we need to do is we've got to let go of the need to rush through everything and be so impatient when we're in the hallway. We want to get out of it as quickly as possible. Now, it's important not to pitch a tent and try and live there, but it's also, most of our tendencies is actually to try and run through it and not feel it at all. And we need to let go of the need to just rush through stuff. Listen to the words of Teilhard de Chardin. He said, above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown and something new. Yet it is the law of all progress that is made that we must pass through some stages of instability, and sometimes it may take a long time. Let me ask you a question. If I could give you a magical power right now, where you could fast forward all the boring and tedious parts of your life, where you can fast forward all the pain, all the difficulty, and all the heartache, if you could, I can give you a thing that would fast forward all those things. How many people would take that? We all would. Anybody see that movie Click? That's what it was about. Adam Sandler, he came up with this universal remote where, if his wife was nagging at him, he'd fast forward. If the kids were acting up, he'd fast forward. Anything that was going wrong or painful or it was a struggle, he'd fast forward. Interesting thing is, at the end of the movie, he didn't feel as fulfilled. He felt like he'd missed out a lot of life, a lot of connection with his family, a lot of the joy and fulfillment, even at work, because all he did was skip by all the not good parts and just go only to the good. And I would suggest to you the thing that makes life rich and fulfilling are the struggles, are getting through the difficult times, are moving through the tedious practices we know we need to do to be better at whatever it is that we do. It is all of that that makes life happy and fulfilling. So it's important we don't rush through it. When you're in the hallway, don't rush through it, because time is needed for us to mature. Time is needed for us to grow. Remember, I've told this story before, is that I love cake. In the Caribbean, cake was like boss. We didn't do pies. Everything was cake. That's dessert, cake. I love cake. And sometimes I try to help my mom, a.k.a. get in her way, while she's trying to bake the cake. But I got to actually butter and flour the pan and pour the batter in, and I got to preheat the oven. She said, preheat the oven to 375, and we'll have cake in 45 minutes. And I, in my brilliant way, and I've shared this before because I love this lesson, because I keep learning this lesson over again, I'd say, Mom, if we turned it to 500, we could have that cake in 15 minutes. And my mom said, yes. Well, it might look cooked on the outside, but it won't be done on the inside. We think that if a job ends, that it's all about just getting another job. Or if a relationship ends, it's just about getting another relationship. And I suggest, no. It's about making sure we're done inside. That everything we do, as I've mentioned, is about our soul's growth. It's about what do we need to heal? What do we need to learn? What do we need to expand into? What is it that we are here to share and discover? Who am I to become through this experience? And it takes time. It takes time to be great. It takes time for spiritual maturity to happen. And you have to live through the day-to-day things and do them every day. I'm a big Eagles fan. Any Eagles fans in the house? I love the Eagles. I watched the history of the Eagles, and they were sharing when Glenn Fry and Don Henley, they didn't know each other, and they were musicians, and they came together, and they wanted to write great songs, but they had no idea how to write a song. And, he actually lived upstairs of Jackson Browne, and Jackson Browne was writing Doctor My Eyes, and he heard him playing, and then he'd take a break, and we'd hear the tea kettle whistle, and then he'd play the same thing like 20 times, and he listened, and then he'd join him and try and learn how. And his lesson was that you can write great songs, but to write great songs, you've got to write some really bad songs. That it takes time. You keep writing, and you'll get better and great. And over time, the Eagles wrote a body of work that was incredible. What was interesting about them, too, they had band member changes over the years. Don Layden and Timothy B. Schmidt and I can't remember all the guys, Randy Messina. Anyway, they had numbers of changes. They were together for 9 years. Then they broke up for 14 years. They were back for 22 years until Glenn Fry made his passing, I believe, in January. And one thing they said was they played their music better 30 years later than they did when they were actual hits. And you know why? Because they said the more they play the notes, the deeper they understood it and felt it and poured themselves into it. They said they understood their relationship with the notes and the music and with each other, and that's why they were able to play together. And you can't rush greatness. There's a thing that calls the 10,000-hour rule. It says it takes 10,000 hours of work, time, and intention to be a genius at something. And the fact is, you can't rush it. You cannot rush it. It takes time. So again, whatever hallway you're in, don't run from it. Get all the gifts that you're meant to get. Go through all the details and the work and the prayer and the releasing, and I guarantee you something great will come forth from it. Something great that will advance your soul. Hallways aren't easy. Endings are not easy, but they're important places. And it's all about letting go. Will you trust God enough that God loves you, that you will be willing to let go and surrender of how you think life should be and who you should be? Are you willing to forgive other people, to forgive and release and untie yourself from them and that situation and pain? And are you willing to let go of your need to rush and be impatient and be present to the process and daily work that will lift us to something greater? There's a door waiting for all of us. New opportunities and blessings. But the success we'll have in that open door all depends on the work that you do now in the hallway. God bless you all.